"Excuse me, young lady Claudia." The flight attendant said, her tone firm but polite. "First class is reserved for paying passengers." Zara, the young black girl, blinked, momentarily stunned. She looked down at her boarding pass, then back at Claudia. "I am a first-class passenger," she replied, her voice steady but soft. "Here's my ticket. There must have been a mistake. You don't belong here in Douth if you don't comply." "I'll have to escalate this and call security," Claudia said firmly. Little did she know that very girl she just humiliated was the daughter of the airline's owner and would expose her long-serving prejudice as we delve into this story. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments and click on the subscribe button. If you believe everyone should be treated fairly without prejudice, no matter who they are, the airport was alive with the hum of activity. Travelers moved briskly, and suitcases rolled across polished floors. There were announcements over the intercom, hurried footsteps of travelers, and the occasional laughter of families embarking on new adventures among the. Her phone lit up with a message from her father. "About to board? Let me know when you're settled." She quickly replied, "Almost there. I'll text once I'm on the plane. Everything's fine." Victor Bennett wasn't just a proud father watching his daughter flourish. He was the owner of the very airline she was flying with today. Yet his humble nature meant he rarely flaunted his status. Victor had built his empire from the ground up, treating everyone from cleaning staff to board executives with equal respect. Zara had grown up watching this, absorbing his values of kindness and humility. Few people knew she was his daughter, and both Victor and Zara preferred keeping family matters private. Across the lounge, two flight attendants stood near the service counter. One of them, Claudia Harper, a woman with sharp features and a tightly wound bun, glanced in Zara's direction. "First class is getting too accessible these days," Claudia muttered under her breath, her tone carrying unmistakable superiority. Her colleague chuckled nervously but offered no response. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. Zara stood, adjusted her carry-on, and joined the first-class line. At the entrance to the plane, Claudia scanned each passenger's boarding pass with a practiced smile. "Welcome aboard," she said warmly to an older white man in a tailored suit. "Enjoy your flight," she chirped to a woman holding a designer purse. When Zara reached the front of the line, Claudia's demeanor shifted subtly. She scanned Zara's pass, her eyes narrowing briefly. The ticket clearly indicated first class, but instead of directing Zara to her rightful seat, Claudia plastered on a tight smile. "Oh, economy is just down the aisle," she said, pointing toward the back of the plane. Zara blinked in surprise. "This pass says first class," she replied, holding it up for Claudia to see. Claudia didn't falter. "There must have been a mistake. Please head to economy." Her tone was polite on the surface but carried an undeniable edge of dismissal. Zara's grip tightened on her carry-on, but her voice remained calm. "There's no mistake. This is my seat in first class." Passengers behind Zara began shifting impatiently, the tension at the gate growing palpable. Claudia leaned closer, her voice dropping slightly. "Look, I don't want you to cause a scene. Just head to economy so we can keep things moving." Refusing to back down, Zara stepped onto the plane, her posture unwavering. Claudia's eyes followed her, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. Zara walked to her assigned seat in first class and placed her carry-on in the overhead bin. The cabin was immaculate, with spacious seats and a calming ambiance. She settled into her seat, adjusting the window shade slightly. Moments later, Claudia entered the cabin, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She approached Zara's row, her face set in a mask of professional politeness. She glanced at Zara, her expression unreadable, and raised a hand. "Excuse me, young lady," Claudia said, her tone firm but polite. "First class is reserved for paying passengers." Zara blinked, momentarily stunned. She looked down at her boarding pass, then back at Claudia. "I am a first-class passenger," she replied, her voice steady but soft. "Here's my ticket." She extended the pass to Claudia, expecting the matter to be resolved quickly. But Claudia didn't take the ticket. Instead, she crossed her arms and gave Zara a skeptical look. "I don't think so," she said dismissively. "Step aside while I handle this." The words hit Zara like a slap. She stood frozen for a moment, unsure how to respond. Around her, the murmurs began. Passengers were starting to notice the interaction. Some exchanged pitying glances. Others whispered judgments. Zara could feel their eyes on her, each glance a reminder of the humiliation she was enduring. Claudia didn't stop there. She took a step forward, her voice growing sharper. "Let me see your ticket again. Are you sure you didn't accidentally take someone else's pass?" Zara held out the ticket once more, her hands trembling slightly. "It's mine," she said quietly. "This is my ticket. My father bought it for me." Claudia raised an eyebrow, her tone laced with doubt. "Your father? And where is he now?" "He's waiting for me at our destination," Zara answered. Claudia let out a small scoff, glancing around as if to find validation for her disbelief. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the ticket, and then back to Zara. "I'm going to need to verify this," she said curtly. "Wait here." Zara sat motionless, the knot of humiliation tightening in her chest. Around her, passengers whispered. Some looked at her with pity, while others wore judgmental expressions. No one stepped forward to help or question what was happening. Zara felt the sting of isolation, but her father's words echoed in her mind. "Always carry yourself with dignity, even when others don't." Still, it was hard not to let the emotions overwhelm her. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of who she was. Zara Bennett, daughter of a man who built an empire from the ground up. A man who taught her that respect was something no one could take from her. As Claudia walked away, Zara stood alone, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Passengers continued to glance her way, their murmurs growing louder. Claudia returned a few minutes later. "Excuse me," she began, her voice louder than necessary. "I need to ask you to go to the economy section. This seat has been assigned to someone else that belongs to this kind of section." Several passengers turned their heads at the commotion. Zara calmly reached for her boarding pass again, holding it up without a word. "But this is my seat. How can it be assigned to someone else?" Zara asked firmly. Claudia crossed her arms, her polite mask slipping. "If you don't comply, I'll have to escalate this and call security." The tension in the cabin was high as Zara met Claudia's gaze with quiet determination. The standoff had only just begun. Whispers spread like wildfire among the passengers. A businessman leaned toward his companion, muttering, "Looks like someone's trying their luck." Across the aisle, an older woman frowned, her expression disapproving. "This doesn't seem right," she murmured under her breath. But not everyone was on Zara's side. A man seated a few rows back muttered, "Well, if she doesn't belong here, the attendant has every right to question her." Claudia, determined to assert her authority and unwilling to back down, took the ultimate step. She called for security. Minutes later, 2 officers boarded the plane, their presence adding a new layer of tension to the unfolding drama. They approached Zara's seat, their expressions professional but firm. Zara calmly explained the situation, showed her boarding pass, her voice steady as she defended her right to sit where she belonged. But Claudia's narrative prevailed, the officers deferring to her authority. "Ma'am," one of the officers said, his voice low but authoritative, "we've been asked to escort you to another seat." Zara met their gaze, her voice calm as she explained the situation again. "This is my assigned seat," she said, holding up her boarding pass for them to see. "I have every right to be here." The officers hesitated, glancing at Claudia for confirmation. She nodded sharply, her expression one of vindication. "Her seat is in economy," she said firmly. Despite Zara's protests and her valid ticket, the officers deferred to Claudia's authority. They escorted Zara to economy, the whispers and stares of passengers following her down the aisle. Her composure never faltered, but the humiliation was clear. Back in first class, Claudia returned with an air of triumph. She walked through the cabin with a satisfied smile, her voice carrying just enough to ensure she was heard. "That's how you handle troublemakers," she said to a fellow flight attendant. Then, glancing around at the passengers, she added smugly, "First class is for people who belong here." Humiliated but composed, Zara walked to her new seat. Passengers craned their necks to watch, their reactions mixed, some indifferent, others sympathetic, a few smugly satisfied. In first class, Claudia strode through the cabin, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. A smug smile spread across her face as she glanced at her colleague. "That girl doesn't even look like she belonged in first class, yet she's trying to claim it. This cabin is only for people who belong here," she said, her tone dripping with self-satisfaction. As the flight continued, the quiet hum of the cabin seemed to contrast sharply with the tension lingering in the air. Zara sat in her economy seat, her posture upright and her expression composed. Outwardly, she appeared calm, but inside, frustration gnawed at her. She glanced down at her phone, the unsent text to her father still on the screen. "This isn't right, Dad. Why didn't they believe me?" But she hesitated to send it, knowing he'd act immediately and likely not subtly. Zara stayed calm, yet it wasn't easy. She could feel the weight of Claudia's judgment with every skeptical glance, every dismissive remark. It wasn't just the embarrassment of being questioned. It was the underlying message that she didn't belong, that she wasn't enough. But Zara wasn't about to let those feelings consume her. She took a deep breath, even as the murmurs from other passengers grew louder, even as the stares became harder to ignore. Zara held her head high. Inside she felt the sting of humiliation, but she wouldn't let it show. Meanwhile, in first class, a fellow flight attendant questioned Claudia on why she took those actions on the young girl. Claudia replied, her tone smug. She thought she could just walk in and claim whatever she wants. Her voice was loud enough for nearby passengers to overhear. "But it takes experience to see through that kind of nonsense, and I had to put her where she rightly belongs." A few passengers gave polite chuckles. Others exchanged uneasy glances, sensing that her comments were anything but professional. Seated in economy, Zara kept her composure despite the humiliation she had just endured. Her first-class ticket, the validation of her rightful place, now felt like a cruel joke. She pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she typed a message to her father. "Dad, they moved me to economy. The flight attendant claimed my seat was a mistake." Victor Bennett's reply came almost instantly. His messages were short, to the point, but filled with reassurance. "Stay calm. I'll handle it. Let me know if anything else happens." Zara stared at the screen for a moment, her father's unwavering support giving her strength. She took a deep breath, slipping her phone back into her bag. For now she would wait, trusting that her father's intervention would come at the right time. A little later, Zara got up to stretch her legs, heading toward the bathroom at the back of the plane. As she waited, she heard a soft voice behind her. "I saw what happened earlier." Zara turned to see an older woman from first class. Her kind eyes were filled with concern, and her tone carried a mix of empathy and quiet indignation. "That wasn't right," the woman continued softly. "You didn't deserve to be treated like that. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know." For a moment, Zara was caught off guard by the woman's kindness. She managed a small smile. "Thank you," she said. "I appreciate it, but I'll be okay." The woman nodded, placing a gentle hand on Zara's arm. "You're handling this with such grace. It's more than most people would manage." She gave Zara an encouraging smile before returning to her seat. Back in first class, Claudia Harper was still basking in her perceived victory. She leaned against the galley, her voice carrying as she spoke to her colleagues, unaware that her actions had set in motion events that would soon challenge everything she thought she knew. An hour into the flight, the plane's communications system pinged with an urgent message from headquarters. The captain, looking puzzled, called Claudia to the cockpit. "Ms. Harper," he said, his tone serious, "we've received a direct communication from the airline owner, Mr. Bennett. He's requesting an immediate video conference with you. Claudia's confident smile faltered slightly. Mr. Bennett? The owner? What does he want with me? He didn't specify, the captain replied, but he emphasized it was urgent. In the cockpit, the video screen flickered to life, revealing Victor Bennett's stern face. His eyes, so similar to Zara's, held a controlled anger that made Claudia suddenly uneasy. Ms. Harper, he began, his voice level but cold, I understand you removed a young passenger from first class today. Despite her having a valid ticket, Claudia straightened her uniform nervously. Sir, I was following protocol. The passenger seemed out of place, and I— Out of place? Victor interrupted. That passenger is my daughter, Zara Bennett. The color drained from Claudia's face as the realization hit her. The young girl she had humiliated and dismissed was the owner's daughter. I've been monitoring this situation, Victor continued. Your treatment of my daughter was not only unprofessional but appears to have been motivated by prejudice. We have a zero-tolerance policy for such behavior. Claudia fumbled for words. Sir, I had no idea. I was just trying to ensure that— That what, Ms. Harper? That people who look like they belong get the seats they paid for? Victor's voice remained calm, but his words cut like steel. I've reviewed the cabin footage. Your actions and subsequent comments were inexcusable. By the time the plane landed, news of the incident had spread throughout the airline. Claudia was immediately suspended pending a full investigation. As passengers disembarked, many who had witnessed the incident offered Zara supportive smiles and words of encouragement. Victor was waiting at the gate, his tall figure standing out among the crowd. When Zara approached, he wrapped her in a warm embrace. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. You handled that with more dignity than most adults would have managed. Zara smiled, her earlier humiliation fading in the warmth of her father's approval. I just did what you've always taught me. To carry myself with respect, even when others don't offer the same. In the weeks that followed, the incident became a catalyst for change within the airline. Victor implemented comprehensive anti-bias training for all staff, created a more robust reporting system for discriminatory incidents, and established a diversity and inclusion board to review policies. As for Claudia, the investigation revealed a pattern of similar behavior toward passengers she deemed unsuitable for first class. Despite her years of service, the airline terminated her employment, making it clear that such prejudice had no place in their company. For Zara, the experience, though painful, strengthened her resolve to follow in her father's footsteps. Not just in business, but in his commitment to treating all people with dignity and respect. The seat she had fought for became a symbol of something much larger, the right of every person to be judged by their character, not by assumptions and prejudices. As the Bennetts drove home from the airport, Victor glanced at his daughter with pride. He said thoughtfully, sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the most difficult experiences. Zara nodded, looking out at the city skyline. I think I understand that now, she replied softly. And I won't forget it.